Hello again, everybody, and welcome to 4-Star Chicago Sports. This is the Northside Nine podcast, and we are off and running kind of in baseball season. And this afternoon, we got a very special returning guest. He's the writer, he's a podcaster, he's our favorite Chicago native. You can find him on Bill Swarsky's Sports Talk Chicago and Through the Garden podcast. Everybody, welcome Alex Patt back to the show. Alex, thanks for joining us again, brother. We really appreciate it. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. And, I'm kind of trying to deal with the constant weather up and down. But as soon as baseball season gets here, I refuse to acknowledge anything that's below 55, even though we're probably going to get a few of those days.
Yeah, today is one of them. How you feeling this morning, Kyle?
I'm good, man. I'm tired. Got home from work about 4 a.m., but I'll push through.
Oh, perfect. Well, you're going to have to now because you're going to be in the thick of it because I'm going to grill you and Alex on this trip overseas across the Pacific. Now, before we jump into that, I want to touch on one thing, ladies and gentlemen. Just as a quick reminder, we do have our live Chicago Bears draft show coming up at River Street at 102 North River Street in East Dundee, Illinois. And we told you we were going to be getting some prizes. I just picked up today Charles Tillman autograph pick. We're going to be auctioning off for charity through Bears Care. And as promised, we also got some Cubs tickets for you guys. We will be raffling off. They are in section 210, row 17, seats 3 and 4. And we're not going to stop there. I'm working on jerseys. I'm working on some amazing autographed helmets. So stay tuned over the next couple of weeks. We're going to get the flyer out. We're going to run this thing, and hopefully we're going to have a wonderful Chicago Bears draft party April 24th, River Street Tavern, 102 North River Street. This segment also brought to you by River Street Tavern. So let's jump this off. Before we get into it, I want to say congratulations to Alex because his team moved on in the NCAA tournament yesterday. The Illini lived to fight another day. Unfortunately, my Jayhawks were the only Big 12 team to lose in the tournament this season. Alex,
yeah, but Sean, you expected that, right?
I did, but I really wanted this win over Calipari because I can't stand the guy. So I really wanted this one. I didn't expect to beat St. John's today, but that would have been nice. But per the 24-25 Jayhawks, they folded when it counted the most, like they've done repeatedly this season. Alex, how you feeling about that victory, brother?
Well, it was nice. I mean, it was really nice. With the way the Illini have gone this year is like, you don't know what you're going to get. And I was a little worried, but I'm like, okay, it's not far away. It's in Milwaukee. There'll be a lot of Illini fans there. And if they get off to a good start and they, hit their shots, they executed when they needed to. So, it ended up being a pretty, I'll say not easy win, but you got, it wasn't like you scraped it out by like 2 or 3 points. So you were able to finish the game in pretty comfortable fashion. So, it's good to see. I don't know if they're going to be Kentucky or not. Like I said, there's such a coin flip on so many different occasions. I mean, they won some great games this year. They went to Ann Arbor a few weeks ago and stomped Michigan. I mean, That was great. And then just last week, Maryland just absolutely took it to them, and that was ugly. So I don't know what's in store for the next game, but I'm just glad they didn't go one and done. So good win for the Illini. It's kind of funny because Illinois has been the source of sports happiness for me because the football team had a great year. Winning that bowl game on New Year's Eve was a lot of fun to watch. And it was so fitting because I watched Illinois win that game. Great, awesome. And then I watched Chicago sports. There's the Blackhawks getting absolutely embarrassed in the Winter Classic. It just summed everything up right there. So thank you, Illinois, for providing me some entertainment because the Chicago sports teams have not.
Yeah, Avicek was on fire from 3. He really kept those boys in that game yesterday. And Jaconis is just, man, that guy is awesome. Awesome to watch. I really like this team, and I really think they got a chance to beat Kentucky. And well, I can't bet it because I'm in Illinois. I would if I could bet them to beat Illinois, or beat them to beat Kentucky. So we'll be paying attention today. You got plans to watch the NCAA tournament today?
Yeah, nothing really too crazy. Maybe I'll find somewhere to go with some people or watch at home. Whatever, it's kind of up in the air right now, the plans. So we'll figure it out when that time comes.
All right, well, let's hop into it here, man. The Cubs did get off to a rough start in 2025. Their offense struggling to capitalize on opportunities, and their pitching staff gave up more runs than they can overcome. But despite the loss, we had a couple bright spots. John Birdie, in relief of Nico Horner, was 3 for 6 on the series. He had a walk, a couple stolen bases. Matt Shaw got his first major league hit, kind of. It wasn't an ideal series outcome, but one thing I know Kyle wanted to see was a turnaround of Dansby Swanson. He got off. He had a couple of hits, a run, a walk, and an RBI. The Cubs did obviously start off 0-2, but when you watch the Dodgers with players like Ohtani and Muncy and Yamamoto and Roki, it's tough not to feel the gap between these two teams. It's easy to get caught up in the frustrations, but we got to remember it's 2 out of 162. And facing a juggernaut like the Dodgers can actually serve as a good benchmark, even though right now, I know for us all waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, it stings just a little bit. Feels like we wasted our time, but it could also be a reminder of a level we're working towards. So let's see how the Cubs adapt and grow over the course of the season. So Alex and Kyle, I kind of going to start you guys off with a 2-part question to open things up. Should Cub fans be concerned? Because it kind of felt like deja vu from last year. Starting pitcher comes out, has a solid performance, bullpen comes in, immediately blows the game. Do you guys believe they can avoid some of the pitfalls from last year, like struggling in close games and not capitalizing on opportunities like, hitting with runners in scoring position? Sometimes it does take a while to break out of this pattern of inconsistency they've been stuck in the last couple of years, mostly bringing back the same veteran leaders. We did talk about some of these concerns the first time we were together, or are you guys just saying it's just way too early to pass any judgments? Alex, what do you think, man?
Yeah, so I'm going to first say something that you alluded to early on about the Dodgers. And the reality is the Cubs and the Dodgers are in two completely different stratospheres. I mean, there are very few teams that can really match up with them on paper. Obviously, the team they met last year in the Yankees in the World Series. Obviously, you have teams that are going to be competing like the Mets and the Phillies that have a lot of firepower. But, I mean, the thing is that there's very little that people can do in terms of roster moves that can get them to the level of the Dodgers right now. I mean, they have everything. They really do. And it makes you wish that the Cubs had some of the things that they had, even if you're not at that level. I mean, there's only one Shohei Ohtani, we get that, but they don't have a Yamamoto that can throw 100 miles an hour and throw a splitter like that, or a Roki Sasaki. And I really wish they had a little bit more in that rotation. I'll be completely honest with you. I'm not saying the rotation is awful, but you're relying on a lot of contact and fly balls where here's Yamamoto throwing 101 miles an hour. Here's Roki Sasaki. Oh, by the way, they still have Tyler Glass now and Blake Snell. And it's like, geez, it's not even close to what the Cubs have compared to that. But you look at some of the things that happened in this series, not capitalizing on opportunities. You had a ton of walks off Roki in game 2. You couldn't capitalize. That's a common theme. I do agree that sometimes it takes a little time to kind of get yourself into it with that kind of thing with clutch hitting, and especially because you're playing in the middle of March. But, there's the frustrations that come up again that can't help make you think that, are we going to have to deal with this again? Because, yes, you swapped out for Kyle Tucker with Cody Bellinger, but the dynamic is still pretty similar to what it's been over the past few years. You got Swanson and Horner when he gets healthy, and Happ. And again, not saying these are bad players, but it's just the last 2 years have been virtually the same movie. And it's been, struggling early on, not hitting in the clutch, digging yourself a hole early on. And your schedule is brutal in April. It's brutal. You have to play these Dodgers again, 6 more times? Mm-hmm. And then you got to play the Diamondbacks, and then you got to play the Padres. It's going to be really, really tough. So I don't want to panic. I don't want to say, this is all for loss. It's not. But I can't help but be somewhat nervous on a few aspects of this team because we've yet to see otherwise. I mean, that's just the thing. We've yet to see otherwise with this team. So it's going to be big how they come out, obviously, with the domestic opener. And obviously, if you could get back on track, you'll feel a lot better. And again, it's a tough assignment playing the Dodgers. But you can't help but look at some of the things that happened over those 2 games and identify, those are the same problems we've seen over the past few years. So I'm not saying panic. I'm not saying give up. But, there's a little cautious optimism here, I think. Yeah. I'm not ready yet to dive in and say everything's going to be great. I'm not also here to say everything is lost or bad or terrible or the season's not over. There's 100 games left. So we'll see. There were a few promising things, like you said, that we saw. There's a few things that you hope gets better fairly quickly because you can't win a division in April, but you can lose it.
Yeah, absolutely. Kyle, where are you at after this trip, man?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Alex. It's tough to overstate how important this starting rotation is going to be for the Cubs. I mean, if Justin Steele has a bad year or off year this year, he's supposed to be their most consistent pitcher. And, his last game in spring training wasn't very good. He did not look very good in Japan, but it's only a few games. I do think the Cubs ultimately still need to add somebody to this pitching staff. They need to have another dominant pitcher on this pitching staff because they, like Alex said, you can't have a bunch of guys that pitch to contact, fly balls. Like, eventually, these defensive errors are going to bite you in the butt too often. They need a guy who can throw strikes, and I don't know if he's on this roster yet. I don't know what to expect from Cade Horton, but do I hit the panic button, Sean? No, absolutely not. First of all, they played at 5:00 in the morning. I don't care how long they were there. That's a tough adjustment, man. It's tough. And it's not an excuse because the Dodgers did the same thing, and I understand that. But not only did they play at 5:00 in the morning in Japan with two of the best Japanese pitchers in baseball, but they did it against what I believe, and Sean, you've heard me say this many times. I think this Dodgers team is going to go down as one of the best teams ever to play baseball, barring major injury. I mean, look at that lineup. There's just nothing in that lineup. There's nobody. You're never safe against anybody in that lineup. We saw that ball Ohtani hit against Ben Brown, that high fastball. He's the only guy in the world who can do that. They're just an amazing baseball team. Am I like freaking out that the Cubs lost the first 2 games? No, but I've heard people say this a lot. Well, baseball games early on in the season really don't matter. Well, for a team that missed the playoffs by 1 game each of the last 2 years, yeah, they matter. These games matter, guys. And like I said, I think that Dodgers are going to make a lot of good teams in baseball look bad. I think ultimately the Cubs will end up being a playoff team. I don't think everybody's set into this roster yet. I think don't expect Kyle Tucker to go 1 from 8 in many series for the rest of the season. I think he's going to be a very good player for them. But yeah, there's definitely some things they have to clean up, Sean. Hopefully Craig Counsell's the guy who can do it for them because they spent a lot of money to go get him. So he needs to start reeling this roster in. And I'd like to see Amaya play it basically every day as much as possible until he's not hitting well like he was early on last year. But I mean, what he did at the end of the season last year and then going 1 for 3 in his only game this year, that guy should be playing as much as possible. He should be playing every single day.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that Amaya didn't play the back-to-back games. I don't know if they have preferred, if maybe Steele has a preferred catcher and Carson. I'm not sure yet, but if you have any insight on that, I thought it was really weird that he didn't play back-to-back. And, the one thing that I thought would be the difference for the Cubs here is going to be the difference is how they handle this pitching staff, and if their offense can get into that consistent rhythm, as you guys just touched on, they do have some young talent that's capable of stepping up, and not to be inconsistent across the board, but the bullpen is also going to be a big X factor for the Cubs. So I wanted to get into this and the surprising move. Now, Jordan Wicks was not a surprise that he was sent down because I do believe the Cubs want to keep him stretched out, in case there's an injury in this lineup here. But Eli Morgan, who posted a 193 in 42 innings for the Indians, has some postseason experience. And the Cubs also gave up Alfonso Rosario to acquire him. To me, it was kind of a big surprise that he was optioned right after this trip to AAA. So, gentlemen, can you please talk to me a little bit about this, where you guys are? What are your thoughts? Is there something that I'm missing here with this Eli Morgan trip to AAA? Alex, go ahead. Lead us off, buddy.
Yeah, so I mean, it wasn't on my bingo card either to see Eli Morgan get sent down. Unfortunately, with this move, it could kind of make you go to thoughts that are, I don't know if I want to say extreme, but kind of panicky. But I mean, here's the way I see it: is Eli Morgan does have options, and the Cubs have a lot of pitching depth right now, and a number of it is NRIs. So, you brought in guys like Brad Keller and a few others, and you're kind of trying to see what you're going to get there. And, they can't be optioned. They're non-roster invitees, minor league deals. So I think this is just kind of a roster maneuver to kind of evaluate where your pitching is, who stays, who goes. Eli Morgan's going to be pitching for the Cubs. I can guarantee you that right now. He's going to be pitching for the Cubs. He's going to be a big part of that team. We know how rosters can be weird and how things have to work out. You only have 26 men. Guys have options. Guys don't. Guys are on a major league contract. Guys are on a minor league contract. So I just see it as maneuvering right now. I don't see this as any indication of he's not good enough to be part of the pitching staff, or he's going to be spending a lot of the year in AAA Iowa. Again, I wasn't expecting this, but I can look at it and say, okay, I can kind of see where this is coming from. And I have no doubt he'll be pitching for the Cubs for most of this year.
Yeah, it was strange to me because, Sean, I liked that was one of my favorite moves in the offseason. I think not only is Eli Moore going to be pitching for the Cubs, I think he's going to be crucial for the Cubs. I think he's going to be and ultimately end up being one of their 7, 8, 9 guys and a guy who plays in high leverage situations. But I do understand what Alex is saying. It's early on in the season. I think they're kind of just shuffling the cards a little bit right now. I don't think this move has any major impact on the Cubs immediately. I think they're kind of just trying to figure things out. Like you said, Sean, you've said it numerous times, Craig Counsell is still trying to figure out what to do with this roster, not just the rotation, not just the bullpen, but also the lineup. You're going to see a lot of shifting guys around here this early on in the season. But yeah, like Alex alluded to earlier, man, it's a rough April, so they better start figuring this stuff out pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the topics I was going to get into was this tough 29 game stretch that the Cubs have coming up to start the season. Yeah, that Alex touched on here just a little bit. Before I get into that, I do want to get into one more thing, and that is Seiya Suzuki's performance overseas, going 0 for 8 in Japan. He did have some good contact, but he had a lot of balls that just ate him up, whether that was just the pitchers he was facing. But this guy is going to be a comfortable key. And going through sports radio this week and reading some things on X and around, there's a shift saying maybe with Dansby's hot start, you should move Dansby up, move Seiya down until they get comfortable. Kind of give me your guys' thoughts. What do you think? Kyle, kick us off on this one. What do you guys kind of think, Seiya up, Dansby down? Where are you guys kind of with this lineup shift? Or, again, just way too early, leave it as is. Let's see how the first week or two pans out of the season.
I mean, right now, I'm under the impression that you brought Craig Counsell here for a reason. I think you should trust whatever he does. I think whatever decision he makes, the Cubs should ride that out. I mean, first of all, like we talked about, guys, it's 5 o'clock in the morning against the mighty Dodgers. There's not any single person on this roster that I'm like disappointed in from those 2 games in Japan. To me, ultimately, I know, like I said, I hate when people say these early games don't count. They don't matter. They do 100%. But like I said, the Dodgers are going to make a lot of teams look bad, a lot. And as far as I'm concerned, it's just a slow start to the season for Suzuki. I think ultimately DH will be where he's at his best. I think he's going to have a decent season for the Cubs. I do think that Suzuki's probably a little bit overrated and for Cubs fans' expectations, I guess you'd say. I think he's probably going to end up being a 270, 280 hitter. I think Cubs fans thought at one point he was going to be closer to 290, 300. I just don't think he's that guy. But there's no way I would start shuffling this rotation because of the 2 games in Japan. I mean, ultimately, in a couple of weeks, if it's still not working, then the Cubs need to think about moving these guys around a little bit. But there is one good thing, man, Sean, like you keep saying, for Dansby Swanson to be leading the team in batting average besides John Birdie, that's a good start for him because, man, you talk about a guy who's had a rough stretch since he's been here. It's Dansby Swanson. It gives me Jason Hayward vibes. He needs to hit closer to 270 this year. He absolutely has to. He should be one of the leaders of this team. He's the highest paid Cub.
Yeah, I mean, with Suzuki, 2-game sample size, facing really good pitching. I'm not going to really overreact to lineup construction just yet on that end. And, it wasn't just Seiya who struggled. Michael Busch didn't have a great series either. And, there's some guys that fared better than others. Obviously, you mentioned Dansby. Ian Happ had a solid series at the plate. He walked a few times, had a few hits, had an RBI hit in the last game. But, how many times do we see an opening week where a notable player gets maybe 0, 1, or 2 hits and just doesn't start off great, and then they find their way? So, yeah, 2 games with Seiya Suzuki. I'm not going to really look too much into that. Obviously, he's going to be under a bigger microscope because he is one of their, quote, main guys, along with him and Tucker and whatnot. So we'll just kind of see how this goes, and we'll see how he hits because, he could go to Arizona, he could start hitting again, and things look good, and you don't even think about it again. But I do agree that it's nice to see Dansby Swanson, even if it is just 2 games, get off to a better start. Honestly, for me, if he hits 250 with an OPS of 740 to 760, then that's kind of where he just is. Like, that is a Dansby Swanson type stat line right there. I'm not expecting him to be, Trey Turner or a healthy Carlos Correa, obviously. But the defense has looked more than rock solid with him so far in spring and preseason. So if by year's end, if Dansby Swanson's hitting 250 with 22 homers, a 750 OPS, and like a 108, 110 WRC plus, then I think we're getting what we're paying for with him.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to touch on, because I went back and I looked at film of Matt Shaw and his minor league at bats, what he was doing in spring. And I don't know if you guys caught this. Did you guys notice how he was keeping his foot like cocked in, and his like ass end was kind of weird?
Very awkward.
I'm like, where did this come from? Is he just not comfortable at the plate? I thought that was very awkward to see. I mean, is there a concern here? Maybe he's not 100% healthy. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that he's going to need some work and tweaking as he plays in the major leagues. I mean, you remember when Baez came up, he had that pretty big leg kick, and then, it was 2014, and obviously the overall numbers, you saw the samples of good things, like he hit some home runs, but he also struck out like over 40% of the time and hit under 200, and then he worked on some things. So I don't think that it's going to be like a long-term concern necessarily, but I do think that it's fair to warn that we can very well see some major growing pains with a rookie Matt Shaw, who is going to have to go and make some adjustments and tweak some things. And it's going to be maybe frustrating at times just because third base is so important, and the Cubs have just putzed around with it the past few years. You can't do that with a position that is that important. And the ceiling for Matt Shaw is very high. And if he ends up being the guy, then they won't be putzing around anymore. But I do think there's going to be very noticeable growing pains with him. And we just kind of got to be prepared for that.
Yeah, it's not too concerning to me. I mean, these guys are such good athletes. They're so good at baseball that when they're playing these pitchers in the minors who pitch 4, 5, 6 miles per hour slower, they can basically get hits flat-footed. It's not surprising at all to see him come up here and start tweaking his stance a little bit, start working on it. He's probably going to change it again. I agree with Alex. I 100% expect to see some growing pains from Matt Shaw. I think the transition from minor leagues to major leagues in baseball is tougher than any sport in the world. It's just, just the sport itself is just goofy. You look at it, if a guy is shooting 30% in the NBA, if a guy is hitting 300 in baseball, he's for his whole career, he's a god. It's just a very strange sport. It's tough. I think it's the toughest thing to do in major league sports is hit a major league pitch. He's definitely going to have some growing pains for sure. But ultimately, we've talked about this, Sean. If he ended the season with a 240, 250 batting average and 15, 16 home runs, I'd say that's a successful season for your new, hopefully future third baseman.
The one thing we can hang our hat on, as we have seen Dustin Kelly work with Miguel Amaya and PCA on their swings, their leg kicks, and get them corrected in just a half a season last year. So we do have to keep the faith that this is going to work out for the Cubs. And back to the original point of Hap, Seiya, and Tucker, I still do think throughout the season they're going to be a really intimidating part of this lineup. Hap has great patience and ability to get on base, and really set up opportunities for the middle of that lineup. Seiya has a nice, well-rounded approach at the plate, and Kyle Tucker just mashes. So I still do think that the Cubs are going to be okay in the center part of that rotation or lineup, and hopefully PCA and Miguel Amaya and Swanson, bounces back and those two develop, and the Cubs have a well-rounded lineup because they're going to need it right off the bat.
You're still missing Nico. When Nico gets back up, you expect him. I don't know about you guys. I expect him to have a better season than he did last year. I expect him to be a major part of this team going forward. So I'm not overly concerned about any of these guys just yet, Sean. No,
what are your thoughts?
Especially Matt Shaw.
What are your thoughts on Nico? Coming off that shoulder surgery, I think he debuted yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. So he's finally throwing. That's a good thing. What are your expectations? I know some Cubs fans love him. Some Cubs fans are like, yeah, this dude can leave and be gone. I'm personally a Nico Horner fan, but what are your thoughts on Nico? What are your expectations for a bounce back season, or do you expect him to have a bounce back season, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, if he's healthy, because remember last year too, he had wrist issues, and that was, a toll on him as well. I mean, I think he's a guy that if he's healthy, you take all of his pros and you can put the cons aside, so to speak. He's an amazing defender. He can make contact. He can hit the ball, foul pole to foul pole. And if he's doing that, then you're like, okay, he's not a big power guy. He's not a big walk guy. But if you take all those other attributes and what he's doing well, then that's a good, valuable part of the team. I do sometimes think that Nico Horner, he gets criticized because the team around him doesn't have enough, he doesn't have enough power. It's like, well, here's the thing. If you had several 30-plus home run guys on that team and you had a more consistent offense, we wouldn't really be talking about that. And you have a lot of guys on that team that can draw walks. And it's not to say that Nico Horner doesn't have good ABs, but, he's looking up there to put the bat on the ball. He's not one to, take the close pitch. He's going to swing and try to shoot it the opposite way, foul it off, make some sort of contact, whatever. So I think as long as the rest of the team is doing what it's supposed to be and he's healthy, then we'll be a lot happier, I think, with what we see from Nico Horner, because you look at what he can do even just on the base paths. He's a smart base runner. He's an all-around smart baseball player. So a lot depends on his health and how the rest of the team does. No, he's not a second baseman that's going to slug like Ozzie Albies, who can produce, he can hit the long ball, and he's a bit more of a slugger run producer than, say, Nico Horner, but it's a whole functioning unit, and I'm looking forward to Nico potentially being healthy, because if he's closer to what he did in 21, 22, 23, you're going to take that.
You're going to be really happy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you entertain, if he's back to that, getting him back to the top of the order, or do you like him where he is, kind of 5'6"?
I've thought about that, and you can make arguments for leadoff, but I still don't think he walks enough to be leadoff. I know there's a lot of mixed feelings. I like Hap at leadoff because of the way he walks, the way he's patient, and we've seen him hit a lot of leadoff gap doubles in his time here. So maybe if you were to put him 2, but I think if Seiya Suzuki is hitting good again, you can put him at 2. I think it's really going to depend on how the rest of the lineup shakes out, but it's definitely something that you can consider and say, maybe as an option, if he's healthy, he's hitting well, you can put him at the top because, hey, say Ian Happ gets on and he shoots the ball in the right field and you got 2 good, smart base runners aboard for the middle of your order, then you can get things cooking pretty good. You could do a little hit and run there. With the way he goes the opposite field, you say you put Hap in motion, you get him to put the bat on the ball. A lot of good things can come from that. You just want to make sure that he's healthy, he can run the bases well, and that he can shoot that ball the other way and make consistent contact. So we'll kind of see how the season plays out, but it's definitely an option. It's something to consider.
What do you think there, Kyle, on that? Moving Horner around.
Yeah, I hate to sound mundane, but I agree with Alex again. I mean, if Hap got hurt or something like that, or he had to miss some time, a day off, I have no problem with Nico sliding into that leadoff spot. But I'd like to see him somewhere around 2-3 in the lineup, just because, like what Alex just said, there's a lot you can do with him on the base paths, hit and run. But I think ultimately you should just keep Hap leading off. I mean, Hap's been good for the Cubs the last 2 years. And he's got a lot of criticism, but I know people keep saying, "Oh, Hap would be the fourth best player on the Dodgers or fifth best player." You guys, last year he was the best player on the Cubs. I mean, I don't care where he would be anywhere else. He's been very good and very consistent. Actually, probably the most consistent of any of the Cubs. I like Hap there. Wherever Craig Counsell decides to put Nico when he comes back, I'll be fine with it.
Yeah, before we move on to the next segment, we do have a program note that I forgot to lead off with. On Monday's Hallis Hall Hangover, I spoke with Nick from Another Year Chicago Bears, and we are moving him from this Monday to next Monday because of his work schedule. We'll get the post up on Facebook so everyone remembers. So Just Another Year Bears, Nick will be joining the show on I don't even know what that date is, to be honest with you. It's next Monday. I believe it's the first Monday of April. So the Hallis Hall Hangover, the first Monday of April, we'll have Jay, Nick, Just Another Year Bears on the show. So we're looking forward to that. And as we move on, I wanted to touch on the schedule because Kyle and I were just talking about this, I believe on Friday or Wednesday or Friday. I can't remember what day, but the second month of the schedule, Brewers, Giants, Mets, not so easy, but Marlins, White Sox, Marlins, Reds, Rockies, Reds. Looks like we can have a little bit of a bounce back after this first 29 game schedule that started with 2 overseas, 4 in Arizona, 3 in Oakland, 3 versus San Diego, 3 versus Texas. Those will be in Chicago. Then we travel to California for 3 against the Dodgers, 3 against San Diego. Then back home for 3 against Arizona, 2 against the Dodgers, and 3 against the Phillies. Now, the pitching staff didn't start off as well. Shota did look good. The relievers, Merriweather looked okay. His first pitching since last May, he looked okay. Porter Hodge, he was okay. I mean, nothing was like, oh my God, these guys look dominant. So coming into this first 29 game stretch, where do you feel the Cubs need to be to maintain some, stability in this division? Because this division should be winnable. But I mean, if they come out of this stretch 10-19,
that's bad.
How you guys? How are you guys thinking? This is what I want to ask. Where do you guys think the Cubs need to be, and where would you like them to be after this treacherous 29 game stretch that was voted just the other day the hardest first month of any baseball team in baseball?
Yeah, I would be happy around 500. Honestly, if you're around 500 at the end of April, no matter what team you are, nothing is doomed. Nothing is screwed. If they win less than 11 games, I think you're in big, big trouble. I think if you win between 14 to 16 games over that stretch, you're fine. You're okay. And hopefully, a few of those games against some of those tougher teams, obviously you're not going to lose every single one, but you would like to win a few of those series or split a few of those, depending on if they're 3-game, 4-game or whatever. But, you look at what you have, and there are a few series where you're like, okay, the A's, sure, the A's aren't considered good, but they do have some dudes on that team. And the Rangers are, they look intimidating on the schedule, but I do think they are beatable. And I think San Diego is going to be really tough, but you'd like to at least take a series from them at home. It's going to be really tough at Petco Park. We remember what happened last year. And the Diamondbacks are the ones that really scare me too, because that team they annoy the ever-living crap out of you. And they it seems like they just win every battle of inches against you. And we know the history of the Cubs in that ballpark in Arizona. It's not particularly pretty. So it kind of sucks to say for a team you're looking to compete, but like just survive. If you survive around 500, you'll be okay.
Well,
Yeah, it's a good measuring stick for the Cubs early. I mean, you want to know who you are as a team. You want to know where you're at against these other teams in comparison to the Braves, the Phillies, the Mets, all those teams, the Dodgers. This schedule will certainly tell you who they are pretty quickly. I mean, I think like Alex said, there's something about the Diamondbacks just have the Cubs number, man. The last few years in particular, it's been brutal playing Arizona, and that's a good, sneaky good team. They do a lot of good small things well. I think ultimately they will end up being around somewhere around 500, and I'll take it. I'm not going to complain about it in any way, shape, or form, even if they're a couple games below or a couple games over. But you'd like to see them come out of here at least 500. If they don't, they're going to be in big trouble, man. I think that both the Brewers and the Reds are going to be pretty good teams this year. But I mean, at some point, like you said, Sean, the schedule's going to have to even out. So just come out of here 500 and start to beat those bad teams like the White Sox in the second month of the season. But man, I don't remember a time that the Cubs had such a brutal schedule in the season. Yeah. I looked at it when we were talking about it, Sean. I'm like, oh my God, this is literally. I think aren't they done with the Dodgers after the first month?
And the Diamondbacks and the Padres.
Yeah.
Thank God.
I guess it's good to get them out of the way early. I mean, there's really nothing else you could say. Like I said, I think how many, just out of curiosity, Alex, since we got you on, how many games do you think the Dodgers are going to win this season if they stay healthy?
I'll say 117.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to go down as one of the best teams ever. I mean, that team on paper is absolutely amazing. We talked about this. Teoscar Hernandez was like an afterthought for them. That was like right beginning of the season. They were like, yeah, like let's go sign that guy. That guy with 30 home runs.
Had him. Like it's insane. And usually I'm not one to predict a team to win over 110 games. And because, I've always been a firm believer of, baseball variance is a really big part of analysis when it comes to full seasons. And, you just look at the nature of the game. But you know what? I'm going to go overboard with them this year because last year, when the White Sox lost 121, I remember looking at the White Sox going to last year thinking, okay, this team's not going to be good. They'll probably lose 100 some games. But I even thought, maybe they won't be as bad as some people say, even if they do still lose around 100 games. I never thought a modern team would lose 121 games. I thought that there was too much variance in baseball, too many resources that teams have nowadays, and just the nature of the game being so fickle where you are a terrible team that runs into a good team and you win a couple games against them because you get a few bounces that go your way. You have somebody on the other team that's hurt, or they're just kind of going through a little bit of a slump and the timing works. So, I mean, if a team can lose 121 games in modern baseball, then maybe we could see a near 120 win team in baseball too. So I guess keep the mind open.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Dodgers are going to sweep a lot of series this year. And any team they play, like the White Sox or the A's, they're going to handle them pretty easily. And it's funny, Alex, I was on CSP podcast, and Trax joins us now, last year, and I said,
going on, Trax?
I told the listeners to take the under on the 59.5 for the White Sox, and I was laughed at. But I mean, they went into the season not knowing who their starting five were in the rotation. Like they couldn't even tell you that the day of the season opener. They could not tell you who their starting five were. I'm like, guys, it's got to be bad. It's got to be really bad in Chicago for the White Sox. Really bad.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny because I looked at that off season they had like last year, and it's like, okay, you didn't pick up any like, high end guys, but I was kind of like, okay, they picked up Michael Soroka, who used to be good before injuries. Maybe they find a surprise there. Maybe Andrew Benintendi has a better year. Luis Robert was coming off an all-star season. So I thought that even like when they brought in like a Paul DeYoung, it's like, okay, it's a solid veteran there. I was thinking maybe that would help them a little bit, just stabilize a few things, even if they do lose 100 games. Boy, you were right, Kyle. That was brutal. And I mean, you look at this year too for the White Sox. I think they got a lot of good pitching in that system, and I think that's going to be a pitching powerhouse very soon. But their lineup, it's like, who the hell is?
Yeah, it's brutal.
Who the hell's in there? So
you'd probably expect. I mean, I don't know why you would keep him. At some point, Luis Roberts probably going to be traded, right? You would,
I
if
would
he's having a
think
good
so.
season, you would think so. So yeah, it's going to be as soon as they start to hit. If Luis Robert gets hot, and they decide to trade him, it's going to be like, oh well, there it goes.
Which is worrisome from a Cubs perspective because you know that a team like the Reds has been in on him in the past.
Mhm.
And I'm sure they would check in again if the Reds are indeed playing well under Tito and they're healthy. And, maybe another team in the Central, I don't know, the Brewers maybe make a surprise trade. I mean, I know they already have kind of their guys set, but if you're trying to go for it and maybe you need a DH or you want to rotate in the outfield a bit and you want to make a big splash because the Brewers have a farm system. So, it's one of those things where you don't want to see the White Sox trade him to a Central team because that could change a lot of things right then and there in the Cubs' own division. And obviously, if you're a Sox fan, you want to make sure that whatever you're getting back for with Luis Robert, you're getting back quite a haul, and you know that these Central teams have the ammo to make those types of moves.
Yeah.
Do I expect a team like the Cardinals to make that type of move? No. Do I expect the Pirates? No. But the Reds are definitely a team I would keep an eye on if they are in a position to go for it. And the White Sox, as soon as Luis Roberts starts hitting again, I mean, they're going to be constantly making calls.
Yeah, that would be just our luck, right? As soon as he catches fire and ends up being the guy everybody thought he was going to be, he'll be traded to the Brewers. 100%.
Right.
Hey, Kyle, I don't know if you noticed, but T changed his name for us after Wednesday's show. We appreciate you, T, man. Thanks for checking out Saturday's show, brother. We got into a little bit Bears versus Lions on Wednesday's show. So he's a loyal guy. He comes back, but he came in hardcore on the Lions so we had to check him down about his Super Bowl championship.
Sure, until they're supplanted, he's got every room. I mean, this is the first time in a long time Lions fans could run their mouths. So do it now while you still can, guys. I don't blame you.
Right, exactly.
That's you got a good roster. Keep doing it.
And it might get even better. So yeah,
that's the key. They have a good roster. They still have yet to accomplish anything. Let's just keep that in perspective, my friends. I love you, T.
Boy, we're getting Bears Lions trash talk already. All right.
Bears are on the brain 24/7 around here. Can't get that off. And Purdue is slaying McNeese right now, as Trax pointed out, and there goes my opening parlay because I took McNeese plus 11, and right now they're down 16 last I looked. So looks like
they should,
get a little run in them.
Yeah.
I really hope so. That slipper seems to be falling off a little early for McNeese in this one. We'll see how it goes. But hey, I didn't get you. If I missed it, I'm sorry. Did you guys give a prediction on Sox losses for this year? Do you think they're going to be equal to or less than last year?
It's got to be less, right?
I'm going back to baseball variants again, and I know I kind of threw it aside, but because the thing too is, if you actually look at the White Sox and you do a dive and you look at kind of what happened, they technically underachieved last year. With even as bad as the team they had on the field was, I think their Pythagorean wins was a few losses less. So a few more wins, a few less losses. I just to have a record-breaking season 2 years in a row, the odds just seem so slim. The nature of baseball. I mean, I feel like, will they still lose 100 some games? Probably. Like, I would put them around 105 losses, 110 losses, somewhere in that range. If they lose 120 again, that's almost impressive. Like, honestly.
Yeah, you have to try to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, to be fair, they kind of are, but
No,
think about it too. They didn't even get the first pick because of the new rules.
Yeah, I do think they'll have more wins than they did last year. So I think Andrew Vaughn and Luis Robert will end up hitting pretty well at some point this season. I expect both of those guys to be pretty good. And like Alex said, Andrew Benintendi, he wasn't a bad baseball player when the Sox signed. I'm not saying it was a good contract, but it's not like he was terrible when they signed him. Like the whole world made fun of them for that, but he was a pretty good
He was
baseball
one of my
player.
favorite young upcoming players when he was with the
Yeah.
Red Sox. And I thought he was going to be an MVP. And he's kind of had a weird career because you look at a number of years where it's like, oh, this guy's hitting for average. He's had some power seasons. Even last year, he had over 20 home runs last year after hitting like 5 the year before. Like, he'll have these years where he can hit like 20 home runs, and then there's these years where the bat is just it's like pure slappy hitter. I really don't understand Andrew Benintendi.
Yeah, neither
I
do
really don't.
Well, we don't got too much time left on this Saturday morning, but I do want to run this past you before we wrap and put a bow on this thing. I saw this somewhere, so I just copy and pasted it, and I just going to read it back, and I can't remember where I saw it, but would this statement be true? And if so, how do you feel about the Cubs giving up 6 years of Cam Smith, 3 years of Paredes, 3 years of Wisniewski, 2 years of Bellinger for 1 year of Kyle Tucker? Because Cam Smith right now is lighting the world up. I mean, he's batting, 10,000 for the Astros right now? So if the Cubs don't get this deal done with Kyle Smith, could this be the biggest blunder of a trade since Lou Brock? Maybe. I mean, is there another one that I'm missing? I mean, if you can't get this deal done, I mean,
they did trade Dylan Cease away for Jose Quintana.
Well, they did that too. I thought that was a bad trade at the time. I'm not going to lie, but I don't think it's going to be as bad if Cam Smith works out to be a top 10 baseball player for the next 10 years in baseball. And he is. I believe the Astros said he's getting the starting nod in the outfield already. He was named a starter, so he's going to start in the big league club. So give me your impressions on this. Let me know what you guys think about this. Was this a big mistake? Or if the Cubs re-sign Kyle Tucker to, 5-6 year deal and all's forgiven, we're moving on.
Yeah, I mean, if you extend him and if he plays well this year and you make the postseason, that's much easier to swallow. Because I think that the point here was getting a proven alpha in your lineup, and you did get one. The thing is, what's going to be annoying is that everything is going to be under a microscope with him. So if there's a day he goes 0-4, it's going to be a big deal. If there's a stretch where he is in a little bit of a slump, look at spring training. People are making a big deal out of spring training. He had a lot of hard hit balls that just weren't falling, but in the scorecard, it was going over, and there was a lot of things being made about that when it probably didn't need to be. So frankly, I don't care about the others. I liked the Paredes trade last year. I was cool with it. I was fine with shaking things up, but I mean, it didn't really work out great for the Cubs. I know there were some warning signs, Wrigley Field not being well for a pull hitter, especially in a year where Wrigley was as hitter friendly as we've ever seen it. Truly, it was a weird timing, but I do think he will do well for the Astros. I think it would be kind of ironic because a lot of people did not like the Paredes trade and then did not like it, then say, oh, well, we trade away Paredes. It's like, well, you didn't like the trade at the time. So what is it? Wisniewski, replaceable. I loved him when he first came here.
Yeah,
when he
too.
first pitched in 22, I'm like, this guy might actually have a future here.
Yeah.
And then too many long balls he gave up. You saw the flashes of him being good, but there wasn't the consistency. I think Paredes and Wisniewski are washes regardless. But yeah, I mean, if Cam Smith turns into a Hall of Famer, which I'm not making that conclusion yet.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean,
you lost the trade. If he's a Hall of Famer, you lost the
unless
trade.
the Cubs win the World Series with Tucker, then banners
Then
fly.
forget about it. Right.
Yeah. But it's like the Aroldis Chapman trade. There have been so many instances of second guessing that. No, you won a World Series. And I get Aroldis Chapman's not a likable dude. And, but they don't have that World Series, I don't think, without him. I really don't. Because, whether it's Chapman, whether it's Mike Montgomery, you don't want to alter any little bit of part of history in that time span, because it could have led to something completely different. You never know. So take the banner, take the win. So we're just going to have to wait and see. I'm willing to just focus on Kyle Tucker this year. He's in a Cubs uniform. He's going to be a big part of this team. Watch and see how he performs. We'll just take it one step at a time.
Yeah, I mean, losing Cam Smith is rough because, we've talked about this before, Sean. This Cubs organization has been so patient with all these guys. Like, hey, we're going to have another bad season, but don't worry, these guys are coming. They're coming. PCA's coming. Maya's coming. All these guys are coming. Don't worry. We've heard Christian Hernandez, one of these guys who've been in their farm system for years now.
Yep.
And then they drafted Cam Smith, and we're like, oh, take it easy, Cam. you're going. Like, it's like only to me, it's not so much the trade that would be disappointing, Sean. It would just be if they don't extend Kyle Tucker in general. Just because, for me, if you're trading for Kyle Tucker to be here for basically 1 year and you're not going to extend him, that would be like a win now mentality, like Alex was talking about with Aroldis Chapman, right? Like, that means you think you have a chance to win the World Series this year, and you're just bringing him here to win the championship, knowing you're not going to extend him. But the Cubs knew they weren't going to win a championship this year. They knew they can't stand up against teams like the Dodgers. So you brought this guy here to what? Make the playoffs and appease the fans? Like, if you don't extend him, you're basically saying we're not worried about winning a championship. We're worried about playing meaningful baseball in August. Like,
right.
If that's the case, then that's severely disappointing for Cubs fans, especially for an owner who we've now talked about 100 times keeps telling us they don't have any more money. Like, well, that's just a bold-faced lie. You do have money. First of all, they don't include Marquee Network in anything they talk about when they talk about their income. They're making money hand over fist in the Wrigleyville area with that real estate there. I mean, the owners who care about their team and are passionate about baseball and want to win championships, they put their money into the team. And I just don't see the Ricketts doing that. They have to extend Kyle Tucker. I mean, they put themselves in a really tough position. They have, because he's going to do what? If he has a good season, guys, what do you think? $350, $400 million?
Oh yeah, it's going to be, yeah. I mean, it's going to be very expensive, and that there is a lot of concern from many teams with a possible looming lockout in 2 years on who they want to pay, what they want to pay, for how long. So, you ask yourself, okay, if the Cubs aren't going to pay him, who will? Obviously, the Dodgers would, even if they, I mean, honestly, let's be real. Steve Cohen and the Mets would. Maybe the Yankees would. Outside of those three teams, there would probably be another kind of, I don't know about mystery team, but there could be another team here or there that could get on that. But when you identify the types of teams that would pay that, it's a kind of a small circle. I mean, there's a reason the Astros trade him away in his contract year. So, yeah, that whole thing's going to be interesting. That's for sure. Yeah,
it's just time again. The Cubs should be, they're the fourth most valuable team in all of baseball. They should be in the conversation for Max Fried. They should be in the conversation for Juan Soto. I understand Ohtani. That's ridiculous, guys. As an owner of a team, I don't care how much money I have. I still don't want to pay a guy $68 million a year for 10 years when he's retired and sitting on his couch. I totally understand why the Cubs are out on Ohtani. But the rest of these guys, the Cubs should at least be in the conversation. This is the Chicago Cubs, one of the biggest fan bases in the entire world, one of the most valuable franchises in all of baseball. They should be involved in all these conversations. If they do not extend Kyle Tucker, even if they don't make it like a strong attempt, like a strong push to, like you guys, you heard Bregman come out and say that the Cubs were never really even an option. Did you hear that? He said that it was basically down to Detroit and Boston.
Yeah, so I did see that. Yeah.
So the Cubs were never really realistic contenders for him. If they come out and just let him walk after trading away a prospect like Cam Smith, who you knew was going to be a power hitter at some point, you knew he was going to hit a lot of home runs, and they're just kind of throwing in the white towel and like, oh, we'll go get another guy next year and make the playoffs again, maybe a wild card, first round knockout, and then. That's very disheartening as a Cubs fan, because ultimately it just says that they're never really trying to compete to win championships. They're just trying to sell tickets.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I want every team in this city to be great, and I think that most of them don't want to be great. I mean, I have I have shat down the Bears' necks for years, but the Ben Johnson hire told me that they do want to be great now. I mean, that is, you don't make that hire to not be great. And I look at the way the Cubs have operated, Kyle, everything you said. And the Bulls, who might be further away from a championship than any organization in sports, they don't care about, they would rather have a play-in tournament than try to shell out and win an actual championship.
That's true.
I hope the Blackhawks get there that day, but Jerry Reinsdorf, you look at the way he runs the White Sox, the teams in the third largest market don't want to be great. And it makes me want to invest less time and money and emotion into it, because it shouldn't be this way. We shouldn't have to pay premier prices for teams that don't want to be great, that have the resources to be great. You are blessed as a Chicago team to have the fan base, to have the resources, to have what you have, and to not use that to be great is disgusting, frankly.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you don't tell me you don't have any more money for the baseball team than charge me $28 for Jameson and ginger ale. That's absolutely, it's insulting. It's personally insulting. And then
exactly.
Yeah, I agree with you though, Alex. I've actually said this to Sean a couple of times. I know a lot of people were really upset about the Bears raising the ticket prices 10%. Listen, I'm not saying there's any correlation to the Bears, the money they spent, like on Ben Johnson in particular, who's like the third highest paid coach in the NFL, and the ticket prices. But you know what? I'm 100% damn sure rather to pay 10% to watch a championship caliber team than to pay less than 10% less and watch a team that goes 5-12 again. Like, I feel like the Bears are changing the culture a little bit. They do want to win. They do want to be in those conversations with teams like the Patriots, the Packers, and these teams who have had this sustained success for long term. I don't think the Cubs are in that conversation in any way, shape, or form. As a matter of fact, to me, the Cubs are almost worse than the White Sox in the terms of not talking about like the skill level or the team's overall record. I'm talking about just because the Cubs already have that nostalgia. They have that rapport. They have that with their fans. Everybody in the world, remember, they were the only team on television on WGN for a long time. There's so many Cubs fans all across the world. This team has money. The Ricketts are billionaires. And the last time he said this a couple of years ago, we don't have any more money for the baseball team. It was almost 2 weeks later, he offered to buy Chelsea, the soccer team, which is one of the most valuable sports organizations in the entire world. Like, that's insult. You're lying to our faces. Don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining. And that's what Tom Ricketts is. He seems to be more concerned about that real estate in Wrigleyville than he does about this team. And it's sad because this is what we dealt with before they were sold to the Ricketts family. It's the same thing. And as soon as they were sold, we were like, oh, it's all going to change. They hired Theo Epstein. This team's going to win multiple championships. It seems like they won their championship, and we're like, oh, well, okay, we did it.
To your point, it did change. It did change for the better.
Yeah.
And then once they got that payout, they're turning themselves into a real estate entertainment hub, and not the Dodgers or the Mets or the Yankees. And I want to make a really big point too to you guys, because you've probably seen me talk about it on Twitter. You've seen other people talk about it, but I think this is very, very important. As I am out in public these days, whether it's at a mall or grocery shopping or walking through the neighborhood or going to, some sort of event, whatever it is, like a local gathering, whatever, is you see kids everywhere, whether they're with their parents or in a group. And what I notice is how many kids in this city are wearing the jerseys of Boston and Golden State and the Chiefs and all these other teams that aren't here. Steelers, Patriots, just you name them.
Cardinals,
Dodgers,
Packers.
Cardinals, yes. You see a lot of Dodger stuff now more than ever. And all of a sudden, Lions stuff is everywhere in the Chicago suburbs. That never happened before. And I see this and I'm thinking, Chicago's losing that next generation. They might not see it now because the people who are old enough to buy the tickets, buy the subscriptions, buy the merchandise are still these fans. But this next generation, I'm telling you, Chicago needs to win them back. It is when I was a kid, look, I'm 30 years old, going back just 20 years, the thought of people walking around with all this other apparel that wasn't Chicago sports, it was kind of unheard of. Sure, you had a few stragglers here or there, but that's where you have it with everywhere. But the sheer volume of Steph Curry and Giannis and Mahomes and, Josh Allen, all this stuff in the city of Chicago where these kids want nothing to do with fandom of the local teams, these teams need to get their ass in a gear or they're going to lose a generation of fans. I am truly convinced of that because we live in an era where with modern technology, you can watch any player, any team, anywhere. You would rather follow Patrick Mahomes than watch the Bears go 5-12. You would rather watch Shohei Ohtani than the White Sox lose 121 games. You would rather watch Steph Curry than watch a directionless Bulls team. That's what the kids are thinking now.
Yeah, and
I'm just making that point.
You know how personal. We all remember being young kids in school. You know how personal sports get. I mean,
Yeah.
you're gonna take the team that you can point to your back and be like, we are like, it would have been the Patriots for us, right?
Yeah.
Like we were in school, we could have been like, I'm not a Bear. You can Packers fans, you can talk shit about the Bears all you want. I'm a Patriots fan. We win. We're better than anybody. And these kids are going to start to do that more and more and more, especially with social media. And like you said, especially with how easy the access is to watch any other team in sports that you want. You don't have to watch the Cubs or the Bulls or the Blackhawks or Bears. But yeah, I think it's insulting what Chicago owners have been doing. Just kind of trucking along and making their money and not really worried about winning. It's insulting to fans who are passionate about sports. And if it doesn't change soon, I hope that people do start to jump ship a little bit, Alex, because we've spent our entire lives being disappointed. I mean, excluding the 90s Bulls, which is far in the past now, guys. We can't, that's pretty much done. The Bulls fans talking about that. That
was multiple generations.
Yeah. And the Blackhawks and the 10, 13, 15 championships. And then obviously the one World Series for the Cubs and White Sox. But besides that, I mean, being a Bears fan, a Cubs fan, a Blackhawks fan, a Bulls fan, for the majority of my life has been pretty brutal, guys. Pretty brutal.
I mean,
it's funny. Yeah, it is.
It's to say, if you think about it, the Bears are the most unsuccessful franchise based on championships in this city.
No, it's not just championships. But, I mean, that's, like you see these Instagram memes where it's like the last time these teams made an NFC championship game, and for the Bears, it's like 18 years ago. The teams above them are like these teams we've been making fun of for years, guys. The Lions, like all these teams that were like the laughing stock of the NFL. And they've been in the NFC
Lions,
championship.
The Jaguars, they've all been more recently.
Yeah.
Well, and to your guys' point, the Cubs currently have no playoff appearances since 2020, no playoff series wins since 2017. They're only 37 games over 500 since 2016, and they have the highest payroll in the division. So
yeah, and if you're a Royals fan and it's the same, you understand. If you're an A's fan and it's the same, you understand. We are the Cubs. We're the Chicago Cubs. The Chicago Cubs should be involved in every major free agent conversation that comes. Every single one. They should have been a player in Max Fried. Now we're sitting here talking about, how's this rotation going to work out? Is Imanaga going to pitch to fly balls and the wind's going to be blowing out this year? Is Justin Steele going to have a down year? Who's your number 3? Jameson Taillon? We should have 1, 2, 3 who are studs all across baseball and dominant. We should be in that conversation.
Well, to your point, if I get you guys off the ledge just a little bit, I think the Blackhawks are pointing up and are going to make us happy over the next couple of years as they continue to evolve. And I definitely think the Bears are headed in the right direction. We'll see. We'll definitely see. But I do like, and Alex, I know you do a lot of Blackhawks stuff. I really, really like where the Blackhawks are going right now. And I think over the next couple of years, hopefully this whole thing with Bedard, going, I read an article the other day where like the Blackhawks should trade Bedard. No, you shouldn't. You should find a way to build this team around him.
Bedard should have a statue outside of the United States. Are you kidding me? Don't be the Luka Doncic Mavericks. Do not trade one of the best.
He's got a statue. He's got a statue in the minds of many, obviously, and people are like, okay, well, why is he not putting up 50 goals? I built this statue for him already, so to speak. But here's the thing. His numbers are good. Like for a teenager, he's a teenager. He's a teenager on a terrible team. And yes, he does have to work on some things. And I even will admit, I thought he'd be a little further along by now, but I'm not worried. Now, the nice thing about the Hawks is that they got a ton of resources. You got draft picks up the wazoo. You're not going to use all those draft picks. You're going to use them to trade for proven assets so you can start building a core around Bedard. You have a few really notable prospects, and you're seeing some promising things from like Frank Nazar, and they just called up the Artie Party, their first draft pick, and you're seeing some promising things there. I like Colton Dock too, and it's going to take some time to grow for some of these kids. The NHL is such a quick, physical game, and it's going to be tough for some of these guys to adjust right away. So the big key for the Blackhawks in this offseason, in addition to building the roster, more than anything, you need to find the right coach. You have an AHL coach at the helm right now.
Yes.
Yeah,
Enough of this
goaltender and
shuffling
coach
this
should be-
guy up from Rockford because he
Right.
coached the young kids. Let's get a professional coach in here. With Renzel, you still have Oliver Moore. You got who's that other kid? Man, I haven't looked at this in a little bit. I like how they did the back end though with Korchinski. I still have Alex Vlasic is gonna be good. I mean, this roster is going to turn around, and if you can add like a Mitch Marner this offseason as he's going to be a free agent. I was really hoping for Mikko Rantanen. Unfortunately, he just
me too.
Dallas.
Me too.
But
my dream, my dream that's never going to come true is if we had Austin Matthews on this team.
Oh God!
Oh jeez!
Oh God! I would throw a party. If we ended up with him, man. Really quick. And any closing thoughts before we put this out? Before we wrap this up?
I would just say that as we go into this domestic regular season, is keep an eye on how this pitching structure is going to work out, because I think there's going to be a lot of flux here because there's still no real clear direction on the bottom of the rotation. Obviously, I think if you're going to work with Jordan Wicks at the bottom of the rotation in Iowa, he's going to take that time to do it, stretch out, whatever, and then maybe be a bottom rotation guy down the road. But to start the season, is it going to be Colin Ray? Is it going to be Matthew Boyd? How are you going to put that together? Is Javier Assad going to be healthy? I think that's just one thing to watch out for. And seeing how the bullpen roles come together outside Ryan Presley, because there's just a lot of shuffling and unknown right now on who's going to fit in where exactly. I would say keep an eye on Nate Pearson and Julian Merriweather to maybe be a setup guy. We'll see how it all plays out.
And go ahead, Kyle.
No, I was just going to say, Cubs fans, stay patient. Obviously that series in Japan, who most people probably didn't watch anyway because it was 5:00 in the morning, was not a good start. But this is going to be a very competitive baseball team, especially in the NL. I think they're ultimately going to win the division. I think they are going to make the playoffs and hopefully make some noise. Hopefully they figure a lot of things out when that time comes. But have fun with it. After watching the Cubs for the last few years and watching the Patrick Wisdoms of the world and all these guys and Frank Schwindel, this is a professional baseball team the Cubs are putting on the field. They're going to be, I think they're a top 6, 7, 8 team in the NL, and it should be a fun run, Sean. It should be at least the Cubs are back to playoff caliber baseball this season. I think they're more than capable of winning this division, no doubt about it.
In Illinois Jones, the kid you're thinking of is Nick Lardis. I think he broke 70 goals in the CHL. He's kind of an under radar player for the Hawks. It seems to be like they might have found a diamond in the rough here. So, you know anything about Mr. Lardis, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, he's scoring like every night. He's scoring like 2 goals every night. And just every single game, you would see all the beats and the covers of the Blackhawks prospects and farm system retweeting goals that he scored. I'm glad you brought him up because he is one to really keep an eye on. We see how he grows as he goes. And, obviously it's different competition down there, but it takes a lot of skill to score that many goals.
Where is he from?
Any level. Oh, he is...
He's in the CHL, I believe, or something like that.
That's where he's playing. I'm just trying to remember where he came from.
Did he go to like a major university, Sean, or is he just?
I don't know. I honestly, I didn't really pay too much attention to him until all of a sudden I started getting these pop-ups on my phone that he's like tearing up the league. And I was like,
I'll tell you what, for the last few weeks, Chicago sports have been entertaining. I'm not saying that these teams are good. Don't take my, but even the Bulls, like this Trey Jones kid that everybody was like, nobody knows who he's terrible. He's off. He had 12 assists the other day. Josh Giddey's played really well for the Bulls. That Buzelis, their first round pick, looks good. It's the past. And then obviously the Bears offseason has been absolutely tremendous. They finally went and got an offensive line like we've been asking for the last 20 years. Like you guys said, there's a lot of young talent on the Blackhawks. It does seem like Chicago sports is turning around a little bit. I think Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles have started to instill like a winning culture on the Bears.
Yeah,
here.
I think so too.
I think it's definitely going to get better. I mean, it can't get much worse than last year, right? Wasn't that the worst year in the history of Chicago sports? And I know,
I think it was. I mean, because the White Sox really helped out with that in terms of number of
their
losses.
record was a big chunk of that.
Yeah, it was a very big chunk. And you were asking about Nick Lardis. He was drafted 67th overall, and he's playing in the OHL, which is where Patrick Kane played before he came over. So yeah, he's in the Ontario Hockey League. That's where Patrick Kane played before because Patrick Kane played for the London Knights when he was drafted. So we see good Ontario hockey players come to the NHL and do some good things. So I'm not saying Nick Lardis is going to be the next Patrick Kane, but you got to keep an eye on this kid because it's funny because I'm looking at this report now and there's a lot of models out there and there's a lot of grades and there wasn't a lot of pomp and circumstance with this kid, obviously. Obviously Artem Levishnov was the guy that everyone was talking about. He was their first pick, but kind of cool. Here's an interesting stat. Most goals in the OHL in the last 35 years. Nick Lardis, 70 March 8th. There were two guys above him, John Tavares and Eric Lindros.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Those are pretty good players.
That's good company.
Yeah. You got a Hall of Famer and a future Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this, man. I've been saying this for a couple of years. I got a couple of my buddies. I know Scott's on vacation, is usually in the chat. None of them believe me. And I just keep saying, man, you got to be patient with the Hawks. They got uber amounts of talent. And I'll be honest, everyone talks about Ryan Poles, pulling off that steal with Carolina. Dude, we better start talking about Davidson pulling off that steal with Florida because you got Spencer Knight, who could be a future franchise goalie and a number one pick for Seth Jones, who didn't want to be here anyways. Oh, God. Come on.
I loved that trade. I thought that was a great trade.
The Blackhawks need to focus on extending
I was shocked.
Connor Bedard. That's the first and foremost. That's what they need to do.
I'll be honest, Alex. Yeah. I was shocked too. And hopefully they do, Kyle, to your point, get Bedard extended. And maybe, and Alex, you may know, Bedard may just be waiting to see, hey, what are these people going to do around me? Because I know this kid's not used to losing, and it seems as though he's kind of sick of it. I mean, these game misconducts he's getting, although that last game misconduct didn't really look like he deserved a game misconduct. Yeah.
That was garbage.
Yeah.
So that just looked like a ref trying to look for trouble. Yeah. So I think he loves being here, but he does want to be on a winning team eventually. So obviously they need to start building up the roster, the coaching staff and everything. And, you look at this year and I didn't think they were going to be this bad still. I thought, okay, you brought in some veterans, some are older, but bringing Teuvo back was good. I like the Tyler Bertuzzi, even though he's hit a pretty big goal drought, but you're going to need to bring in a legit guy, like a legit scorer, puck handler, a guy that's smart on the ice, has a physical presence too, which, again, I was hoping that we'd be more consistent with Bertuzzi because he can score and he is a physical presence. But boy, if Mitch Marner that would be something. I mean, that would be a real step forward. And again, you have so many draft picks. You can trade for somebody too. You have all the draft picks in the world. And if you leverage that to get in another guy, if you got like a Marner and then you brought in somebody else, then you could start to see a more competitive team. And then hopefully with some of these prospects that are on the cusp or have come up, Colton Dock's taken another step. Frank Nazar's taken another step. I really don't know about Lucas Reichel. I know he wins faceoffs. I know he does things on the ice, but eventually for a pick that high, you need to score. You need to put up points. And I feel like if he ends up being like a good fourth line guy, whatever, but you need a lot above him.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's kind of where he's trending right now. I kind of before the season started, I kind of gave up hope. I was like, Reichel's a bust, man, and it sucks because I actually, when he was drafted, I was like, man, this kid's pretty good. And
Yeah. Oh
he
yeah.
just-
Oh yeah.
he hasn't
Joe,
worked out.
where's Oliver Moore at?
He just finished up college, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, wasn't he at Minnesota?
Yeah. Minnesota?
Is he in?
Was it
there?
Minnesota or Michigan?
Or was it what was it Michigan?
I can't remember.
I'm getting my prospects confused.
Me
So
too.
I mean,
So he's seen Rockford?
no,
No, not yet.
I don't think he's seen Rockford yet. No.
But
I feel like it was either Michigan or
I'm looking right now. University of Minnesota. He was in
it
Minnesota.
was Minnesota.
He
Okay,
was
okay.
Minnesota. Michigan was Frank Nazar.
That was Nazar. Right.
Yeah. We got a lot of Big Ten
I get
talent.
those two mixed up. Yeah.
We got a lot of Big Ten talent on this Hawks team. We got Michigan State, we got Michigan, we got Minnesota. Let's go, Big Ten.
Big Ten hockey is it's among the best of the best. So
Hey, Alex, before we wrap it up, tell everyone where they can find you if they want to check out some of your shows coming up.
yeah, so if you want to find me on Twitter at ShyFanPat2, I write for Fansided Cubbies Crib for the Cubs. I write about the Blackhawks for Shy City Sports. I mainly write about the NHL level team. There are other people out there that write about prospects and whatnot. I know more about the team than the prospects, obviously. So if you want to, read any of the news for the Blackhawks, I write there. You can also find me at Swirsky Sports. We do weekly podcasts, all Chicago sports, and through the Garden podcast, we do that every few weeks. So be able to check that out there. And feel free to follow, interact, and love to talk sports with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And one more before we get out of here, guys. Just remember, April 24th, mark it on your calendars, 102 North River Street. We're starting to stack up some prizes here. We got some Cubs tickets that we're going to be giving away. We're probably going to end up with 2 sets of Cubbies tickets for that day, just so we can make sure that we get more people out to Wrigley and more money raised for charity, which is probably the most important part of the event. We got right now, we got an incredibly awesome Charles Tillman 8x10 signed photo, orange jersey, 4th phase, blue auto is completely dope. I was thinking about putting it on my Bears Hall of Fame wall, but I'll rally it off for charity.
Rock on.
We're working on an Urlacher autographed helmet and pick, and we're also working on a Montez Sweat autographed jersey. We'll keep you guys updated as these things come along. It's for a great cause. You can come out. We're going to be broadcasting live that day. Get your guys' reactions. People in the crowd, we're going to put you on air. Let us know what you think of whoever the Bears drafted on April 24th. And until then, we'll hopefully talk to Alex, and we'll get him back on here in a couple weeks down the road. We'll break down some more Chicago Cubs baseball with him, and hopefully we're talking about like a 8-2 start or a 12-4 start or something like that.
That'd be nice.
So, yeah, we're off
nice.
and rolling. So, and we'll
They
also
had a good start last year.
Yeah. we they did get off to a hot start last year.
18-11. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then May kind of went.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so,
I
but
don't even know if that says it. It was worse than that.
Hey, but we will say this: the May and June schedule is a lot easier than the first 29 games. So we'll just keep that in our back pocket. Everybody, don't forget, we'll be back on Monday. Hellas Hall Hangover next Wednesday for the Barely There podcast, and next Thursday for the bare minimum. And then, of course, catch us next Saturday at 11, breaking down Cubs baseball. If there's anything to break down, we'll make it short and sweet for you. Until then, everybody in the chat, Illinois Jones, Breaking News Bruce, Crooked Commish, Tracks for checking in, T, love you, buddy, go Lions, Lewis Coleman, Camel Toe Inspector, Elizabeth, thank y'all for checking in, spending a little time with us on this Saturday morning. We greatly appreciate it. We love y'all. Remember, bear down, cub up, and we'll see y'all soon. Stay safe out there, everybody.
Alex, thank you, man. Thanks for joining us again. We really
Thank
appreciate
you
your
as
time.
always. Look forward to doing it next time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Alex, so much. Make sure you go check out Alex on his shows and vice versa, and we'll see y'all back on the chat on Monday. Have a great and safe weekend, everybody.